get some idea who is in the audience here today and what kind of questions they might have to ask. But my name is Randall Adcock. I'm the host of Finding Your Way. Today we're honored to have Kirsha Campbell with us to talk about cash flow management and more. And Kirsha's been doing this for a number of years. She's a certified public accountant and management accountant with her own company called Cash Lab. Now, if cash is king, then Kirsha Campbell is queen of the cash flow management. And so we'd like to have her say a little bit more about herself and how important the cash flow is to small businesses and all businesses in reality. Kirsha, the floor is now yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Randall. I've gotten a new title. I've never thought of it that way, to be honest. So that's really very insightful. So I do want to say welcome to everyone. Let me just get in my screen here. Welcome to everyone. We are small in number, however, that's great sometimes. That way we can be interactive, we can share. So feel free to stop at any time. Randall, will you be handling the chat or following if there are any hand raising? Thank you so much. So feel free at any time. If you have a question, place it in the chat. If you want to raise your hand, we can be very like a fireside chat today. So let's get started. I do want to say thank you again to Randall and the team for this opportunity to present, and also for you all for showing up. Cash is really a very important topic. It comes with sometimes lots of emotions. It's often a lot of uncertainty, misunderstanding. So it can be a hard topic to talk about. So, hats off to you all for being here. So for the next few minutes, we'll go through, as I said before, if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand, put them in the chat. And after we're done, there'll also be the opportunity for more interaction and talking as well. Okay, so I want to see just a raise of hands. If you remember a time in your business or in someone else's business where you've looked at your bank account and based on the numbers in your bank accounts, you made a business decision. You made a decision to do something or not to do something. Anybody wants to? Okay, great. And this is pretty typical. And I want to say, if you don't remember much from today, I do want you to remember never to do that again. Not saying that your bank account is not important. It is for sure. However, using your bank account for strategic decisions, using your bank account for a decision. Should you buy this equipment? Should you expand? Should you do this for marketing? Is a very misleading path to take. And why? Your bank account just shows you a part of what's happening in your business as it comes to cash flow. So you're looking at your bank account, but you're not seeing all those who owe you. You're not seeing if it's a case where you're not seeing cash that is supposed to be coming in. You're not seeing all the expenses that you have to pay in the next month or two. So it is very, very misleading to use your bank account. So I do encourage you not to do that anymore and spread the word as well with your fellow business owners. And just to set the foundation as well, cash flow is the difference between funds coming in your business and funds leaving your business. So actual cash, money's coming in and money's leaving your business. So again, that is why just looking at the snapshot of your bank account at a point in time is very, very misleading. I have another question. Would you prefer, and we'll go around the room, the Zoom room, would you prefer $10,000 today, right now, right this minute, or $1,000 each year for 10 years? David, you were on first, so you showed up first, so let's start with you first. I'm picking on you. You're muted, David. You're muted. You're still muted. We can't hear you. Yes.
Well, because you have to unmute me, which I guess you just did. Um,
Okay.
so yeah, I recognize that the right answer is to get $10,000 today because the value of $10,000 given the rate of inflation, the value of $1,000 a year, you know, is less valuable in the years to come. So that's what I would typically suggest people choose.
Okay, thank you. Savannah.
Um, I would do the same.
Okay. And is it who else is on, Randall? Is it Minnie that's on?
Yeah, meaty. Yeah, I think I'll take the 10,000 today.
Okay, awesome. Whenever I do trainings, thank you all for responding. Whenever I do trainings, oftentimes the response is sometimes split half half, or sometimes it's skewed even to 10,000 today or skewed the other way. And it's a very important question. And yes, 10,000 today is worth more than $1,000 for each year for the next 10 years due to, of course, inflation, interest rates, economic changes. And oftentimes I do see business owners, CEOs, entrepreneurs forget this foundational concept. Because if you understand and you realize that money today is worth more than money later, your strategic decisions will change. If someone owes you, you're going to go after them because you want to make sure that those monies are coming in as soon as possible. It will affect how you spend. It will affect if you take debt or loan, and how much you take. So this is a very important principle that I really want you all to be aware of as you're making decisions and planning and implementing strategy in your business. So we're going to quickly go through three key numbers to look at when it comes to cash flow. There are lots of different numbers, but we're focusing on three key areas today: burn rate, runaway, and growth rate. So, burn rate. So, if you've ever been in a position where it's like you see money you're just spending, 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 and you're like, what is really happening here? This ratio, this key performance indicator is important for you to understand. What this burn rate does, it tells you how quickly you are spending versus earning. So, think of like a scale, right? You want the scale to be balanced. So there are times when it's not going to be balanced. You might be spending more than it's coming in. However, or vice versa. However, when you get to a point where you're spending way more and faster than money coming in, that is again a red flag that you need to look out for. So it's important to understand the burn rate in your business. How quickly you're spending cash versus earning cash. That's very, very important for you to understand. And the thing with the burn rate, it's looking at just cash alone. And that is why it's so critical to understand, am I spending, too fast in just months? And again, it really depends on the state of your business. In startups, it's common that you're spending quickly versus coming in. However, indefinitely you can't sustain that. There has to be a cutoff point. The other thing too is if you're implementing certain systems or you're saying, guess what, we got to get some training on new software, that can happen in your business and that's okay. The key thing with the burn rate is you don't want it to be a situation where it's indefinite that it's happening or for a long, long time, right? Because even if you're in the startup world, if you're getting funding from your investors or grants or other types of funders, they're not going to fund you indefinitely. It's not going to be 50, 60 years, that what I mean, 10, 20 years. So this is an important key performance metric indication of what's happening in your business. The other ratio key performance metric that's tied to this is called the run rate. So the run rate is where we're looking at financial information, and financial information, your reports, profit and loss, balance sheet, cash flow, a whole lot of financial reports. You need to be looking at your reports in your business. You need to ensure that systems and processes in your business are creating leading to creating reports you can rely on for decision making. If an investor comes in, they want to see what's happening in your business. If you're offered to sell or someone wants to partner, they go back to the reports. So it is important that you have that financial information ready. And also, we do use the financial information, all those reports, to figure out what the run rate is. Again, it's another way of looking at how quickly will you run out of cash. So it's taking other factors in. It's looking at, okay, your sales, because sales doesn't always equal to collections, right? So the run rate is taken into a wider range of financial information to help you make a more informed decision, come to a more accurate picture of what your run rate is. Let's talk a little bit about the components of your financial information, your run rate, right? So you have your income, revenue, what's coming in. You have your cost of sales, which is how much did it cost me to make this sale? You have expenses and taxes, and then it leads you to what's called your profit after taxes. So there are different levels you review what's happening in your business, what's happening with your cash flow, and this is where it starts. This is one of the foundation that has to be clear. What's your revenue? What's your cost of sales? Taxes. And I'll say a note about taxes, that taxes are the biggest expenses for business owners, and it's the least planned for. So if you're not planning for taxes in your business, please start. How do you plan for taxes? It's not just at tax time you go to a tax preparer and say, create a miracle or create magic. No, this is where you're connecting with your tax expert. And notice I'm emphasizing expert so they can understand tax laws, they can understand your business, connect your personal situation to your business, and give you the best picture. So planning for taxes will lead you to legally pay less taxes. It is possible. You may have heard persons complaining or ranting, oh, these big companies, they don't pay any taxes. For example, Amazon, Rogers, tell us, these big companies, it's not fair. However, what they're doing is that they're using tax experts. Sometimes they have a team of tax experts to formulate strategies so they can pay less taxes legally. It is possible. So they're using strategies, for example, like donation, using the timing of when they purchase or sell certain equipment to help them to pay less taxes. So all these different components do impact cash flow in your business. I saw, is there a comment in the chat, Randall? I saw something pop up.
I was just inviting our guests to prepare any questions they may have so they can
Okay.
ask them in the Q&A period.
Okay, thanks. So our next key metric, the next component of cash flow is a runaway lane. So think of it, you sometimes this runaway lane is used to, check your vehicle and how kind of the pressure. Can you handle the pressure? Can your vehicle handle certain slopes? Is your brake intact and so forth? And this runaway ratio, it tells you the time in months before you run out of cash. You need to know that. So you need to know if you never made another sale, how soon will I run out of cash? Can I stay in this building that I'm paying a mortgage for, renting for the next 5 months, 6 months before I run out of cash? It's a very important ratio, and it's a key metric that you should always check every month. Check every month to figure out, is it a case where if I never got another sale, if I don't get all those collections in, where does that leave me? You do have some costs that you're going to have to pay regardless if you make a sale. Even on your personal side, too, there are certain things where you have to get done. So you want to be cognizant of all these different factors and make sure you know the time in months, how much time, how many months before you run out of cash. It is a very, very, very important ratio, and it applies to all stages of your business. It applies to all types of your business. It is important, very important, that you understand your runaway ratio. Okay. assessing what's happening in your business. So it is important to look at the right numbers. And also, each number in your business will tell a different story about what's happening with your cash flow. So during my weight loss journey, there was a time where I just plateaued. I wasn't losing any. I'd go on the scale and I'm like, what's happening here? It's not moving. And I knew I was eating properly, exercising, and yeah, I discussed it with my trainer. Always go to the experts, right? They can support you. So she was like, okay, let's check your measurements, your body mass index. And it did show that even though the scale wasn't moving, I was still my body was still shrinking, and I won't get into the details of the whole body. And so, however, different numbers will tell you different things about what's happening in your business. So it is important, like I said earlier, you're not going to only look at your bank account to make a decision. You got to look at other parts of your business, other things that are happening to decide, should I make this purchase? Should I invest in this marketing? Should I pull on a VA? Should I pull on a secretary? Should I expand into move from home? So all these numbers, different numbers in your business tell you different things. So you want to not be like tunnel vision, looking at just one number, one key metric, one key performance indicator. You want to look at a whole different things, suite of things that are happening. So for example, it's easy to say, I'm making more sales, I'm making more sales, I gotta get more sales. However, are those sales leading to cash flow? Right? Are they profitable sales? Are you getting the collections from those sales if you're not a cash business? Another thing you want to be paying attention to when it comes to different numbers is productivity of your team, right? And team, even if you're a solo person, the team is you. So you want to look at how productive you are being in your business if you don't have assistant or a team as yet. So you want to look at it to say, I could be working 12, 13 hours a day. However, where does that lead me in terms of profitability, in terms of sales, in terms of cash flow? I always look at that because that will tell you, that gives you signals in terms of, okay, do I need to, work in a different way? Do I need to think of a software? Do I need to focus on different types of services that might not be so intense? So even under the umbrella of, you might be, let's say you have the cleaning business, right? You might be focusing on this type of service. However, when you look at the numbers, you realize that that type of service might not be giving you the most profit. So you look at another type of service and make a decision to change there. So again, looking at all the different numbers through different lens will help you to decide the trajectory, strategy, what's working, what's not working, what is working in your business as well. We'll talk about the acid test ratio. So with the acid test, and it's connected to the growth ratio, which we'll look at a little bit, it's really looking at in the short term, can you cover your bills in the short term? So it's a different ratio looking at different metrics. So what is it looking like if you owe certain debts within the short term, less than a year? Let's say you have persons to pay, you might have a team to pay, you might have supplies to pay for. What it is looking at is if everybody came today, all those persons you owed and said, pay me now, could you handle that? So in the short term, what does that look like for you? Because we have to be realistic. There are crunch times. There are times where you have to kind of have a rough spot, but you got to be prepared at the same time and be aware of what is it that I need to pay for now? Can I pay for it, right? There are times where you might have to stagger your bills. However, you do want to know that in the short term, am I covered? Am I not covered? What does that look like? Where does it leave me in terms of coverage and so forth? So this acid test ratio, it's focusing on the short term. And we got to look at all the different terms, the short, medium, and long term in your business when it comes to strategy, cash flow, and so forth. So our next focus area is our growth rate. How fast are you growing? And I've heard it before. I'm sure you probably heard it too. I don't want my business to grow. I just want to stay here. Your business must grow. If your business is not growing, then that is a red flag. And growth takes place in different ways. So let's use an example here. If you are charging just $10 for a service, let's keep it simple. And you're like, I don't want to grow, I'm not going to change the price. There's inflation hitting us every year. Interest rates are changing. You know, we have situations now with tariffs and so many things impact your business. So you must be prepared to grow. And growth doesn't necessarily mean more clients. Growth can mean in terms of the dollar amount. Growth can mean in terms of the number of services. So there are different ways to grow. So I do encourage you to assess your business. Are you growing or are you not growing? You must be having some growth in a different way. And as your business is growing, the systems, the processes, the standards will need to change as well. So let's say you started out using Microsoft Excel to track or probably a good old paper, right? Nothing is wrong if that's what you're using. As your business is growing, you're going to find that you can't track all the different dynamics, dimensions, types of transaction on a paper. It gets overwhelming. That's why we've moved away from paper, over the years to having an Excel or system. So your systems, your processes need to grow as well, need to change how you do things to support your business. So don't confuse growth and change with your values, right? There are times where your values must change too, depending on how that aligns with your business and what you stand for, but always be open to growth in different ways. So we spoke a lot about cash flow ratios. The beginning steps start with having a good set of books. That's where it starts, bookkeeping. You probably heard this computer term jargon, garbage in, garbage out. So if it's a case where from the systems in your business, you have omitted transactions are not recorded properly, it filters up into the quality of your reports, how much tax you pay. So let's say, I'll keep it simple, $1 of missing expenses can lead you to pay on average 30% more in taxes, right? And think if you're multiplying that by 1,000, 2,000. So it might seem like a simple thing. Oh, this transaction went to the wrong area. It will affect the quality of your reports, the integrity of your report, your decision making, and it will affect how much taxes you pay. Your business structure. Choose your structure wisely. You can change your business structure, but you want to ensure that you're connecting with an expert to set up your business, review changes in your business. If you're incorporated, shares, if you're a sole proprietor, all these things, business structure will impact your taxes, and it also will impact your cash flow for sure. And it impacts how your business will operate and how it will end as well. If you're going to sell, if you're going to turn it over to family members, all these things will affect your business, the structure of your business. So make sure, even if you've chosen a structure before, you do have an expert review the structure of your business, especially if you want to make certain decisions later on. Be aware of your operating environment. Be aware of what's happening around you. Be aware of the demand of your customers, clients, changes in taste, changes in demand, the economic environment. Just be aware of what's happening. Be aware of what's happening on the outside and what's on the inside. There's a term called quiet quitting, and you should be in touch with your team so that you're never a victim of quiet quitting. You should know what is happening. You should be on the ground and know what is happening, understand your team, how can get feedback from them. So be aware of what's happening internally and externally. Again, I'll stress the importance of having accurate set of books and have effective systems and processes. We can't ever prevent fraud. We minimize fraud, but you want to ensure that in your business, you're less likely to have theft, fraud, missing transactions. You're less likely to have collusion. You're less likely for someone even to steal your business idea. You need to protect certain key areas of your process and your system. And there are a lot of ways to get into that, but all these areas set the foundation for improved cash flow, growth in your business, and sustainable business as well, sustainable cash flow too. So just a few tips to keep the cash flowing in your business. Again, It really depends on what's happening, the stage of your business, the economy. But I'll just talk about a few things here because there are times where you will get into a cash crunch, a rough time. That doesn't mean you'll stay there, but you got to be prepared. Review your finances. Always look at your numbers, at least on a monthly basis. What's my sales? What's my profit margin? Who owes me? How can we improve efficiency? Review your numbers. Ensure you're clear on your collection policies. It's one thing to make the sale is not complete until you get paid. So make sure you have collection policies. Are you getting paid immediately? Are you giving them 30 days, 10 days? Do your clients know your collection policies? What happens when they owe you over a certain time? Are you going to charge interest? Collection policies too affect how you get paid. Make it easy for them to pay you. So are you going to do interact transfer? We have that here in Canada. Are we going to do checks? Are we going to how are we going to ensure collections are done on time and timely? And also bear in mind, the invoice is very, very important. Ensure your invoice is clear and accurate. It shows how you get paid. You're sending it to the right person and so forth and so on. So make sure your collection policies are efficient and effective. Prepare your cash flow forecast. This is a document where every month you should be updating that. It really shows what you need to pay, what collections are coming in. It will tell you in advance if you're going to be in a bank overdraft. You start off your cash flow forecast by using what's called your reconciled bank balance. You need to be cross-checking what the bank says and what your internal records say as it comes to your bank balance, because the bank can make mistakes. There's so much fraud happening now, so you need to be on top of that, looking at your bank account, cross-checking what's happening in your internal records, your cash book. So prepare your bank reconciliation at least every month. Cash conversion cycle. This is talking about how cash is moving in your business. So if it's a case where, you're making the sale and it's taking too long to get the payment, that again is a red flag in your business. So pay attention to the conversion of cash. Monitor ratios, we touched on a few of them earlier. Key performance metrics, key performance indicators, there are a whole lot of them. Make sure you're on top of those. Sales, sales, sales. Don't accept just any sale. We got to make sure the sale is profitable, right? And it's easy sometimes if you're in a tight position to say, I'll take this. Yes, there are times you can do that, but your goal is always is this sale worth it? Right? Is this sale, am I at the right price point? Pricing is a whole nother topic. Are you at the right price point? Am I at the right cost? Because sometimes it's costing you too much to make that sale and you got to adjust it as well. Payment methods. Review your payment methods. Yes, you might be using Stripe, but what if Square is cheaper right now? What if most of my clients prefer Interact? What does that cost look like to me? So you got to make that connection, that cross-check with the payment methods that are cost effective for you versus your clients, and of course, by getting them to pay you easily. Do we have any questions? Or is there anything you want to discuss? It doesn't have to be a question. It can be just a topic for discussion. Yeah, I think discussion is kind of more realistic these days.
I would like to just start this with a question. Thank you. This is very methodical and systematic, which I think is exactly what people need to approach this whole question of cash flow management. I saw one statistic that something like 80% of business failures can be attributed to poor cash flow management. So you're bang on, and we need to be much more systematic, methodical. But what are from your own experience, what are some of the things that people miss in cash flow management? What are like the top kind of triggers that might throw them into a downward spiral in this?
Well, the first one is what I mentioned earlier, using your bank account to make decisions.
Right.
Using your bank account to run your business, that is a slippery, slippery slope. Another thing I see is not paying attention to the red flags, right? So it's one thing, for example, you might need to inject cash in your business probably for a month to cover payroll, to cover your expenses, like your personal cash, or you might need to take a loan or, process things on your credit card or take an advance, your credit card advance. And when it becomes one off, probably two times is not a biggie, but when you finding you're doing it every month, that's a red flag. So that's a red flag often missed. And you may have heard the term, oh, bankruptcy happens overnight. It never happens overnight. There's signs that are missed or just genuinely ignored or not understood. So that is a red flag, constantly having to inject cash to cover expenses. We're not talking about investments. We're talking about where or expansion. No, we're talking about where to make things stay afloat, to keep your workers, to keep, you don't might not have any money to pay taxes when it's tax time, to return your GST. So not looking at those red flags of cash injecting cash over and over and over continuously in your business. That's another red flag that I often see. And another thing that is a slippery slope is just not paying attention to your numbers. So you don't know what your profit margin is, you don't know who owes you, you don't know who you owe. So there's just so much confusion. And that is just a loophole. It opens up like a can of worms when there's so much confusion. Your numbers are wrong. If you're audited, your numbers are wrong. You're not even paying the right taxes, too much or too little. So that again is another slippery slope that really impacts your cash flow.
Yeah. David, did you have a comment or question?
I just wanted to make the comment that bankruptcy happens slowly and then all at once.
Yes,
It's,
I saw that the other day.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess so my own personal experience has been, so I've had my business we've been in business for 29 years. And so
Awesome.
we are still a relatively small business. I mean, there's 6 full-time people. We have sales of less than $1 million a year. We generally have, anything from, you know, generally fewer than 6 large clients that we bill on a monthly basis, and then we have, a bunch of smaller ones as well. And so it's I've always kind of managed to do my cash flow, from an intuitive perspective of, how much work have we done this month? What is my receivables? What's my bank account? And what do I know people are going to want us to do in the next few months? Right. And so I can kind of, you know, get a sense of, well, are we doing okay? Or are we gonna, is there a problem? Or if there's a problem, how serious is the problem? How likely is the problem to sort of sort itself out in the months to come? Because, we know that there's going to be some, large invoices coming due or, large amounts of work to do. And so, I've always kind of managed to just kind of,
Wing
do
it.
it intuitively or by the
Yeah.
seat of my pants. And
Yeah, wing it.
what's that?
Wing it. Like they
Wing
say,
it.
wing it.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And for 29 years, it's kind of worked. I've managed to navigate us through some tough times. I mean, I won't. Well, there was a time when I had over $100,000 in personal credit card debt, which is, let me tell you, kind of scary. When you're making payroll by getting a cash advance on your credit cards, not a fun time, let me tell you. But there's also the belief or the hope or the dream that things are going to turn around in the future, right? So especially in a business like mine where things change, where the type of service that we provide changes because the thing that we had been doing, for dollars per hour now becomes a thing that has become commoditized and people just go and pay as a service. So that kind of makes it complicated as well. But I guess my question is, do you have any suggestions for ways in which I can sort of start to transition um, away from the flying by the seat of my pants approach to more of a, disciplined, you know, proper approach, without sort of having to try to go all in on tracking and projecting and, tracking all the little details.
Okay, all right. So one of the first things I will talk about is, and I was actually, we discussed it at QuickBooks. I was at the speaking at their conference last week, and one of the things that came up is oftentimes as business owners, like you said, that's the process. You're not looking ahead. So one of the first things I would suggest to you is think about where do you want your business to end up? Are you going to sell it? Are you going to have family or some trusted employee take over your business? Why I'm suggesting that is it helps you now to look beyond what's happening. So let's say if you're increasing the value of your business and you're setting up systems. So let's say it's a case where you had to be away for vacation or even just being sick for a time. How would your business survive without you? So do you have systems? Do you have processes? Is it clear with the standards, right? And that is one part of the whole operating part. And when you start looking at your numbers, your reports on a monthly basis in a structured way, even if you're away, it can tell you what's happening in your business. So by that, I mean, you're not going to track everything, but you got to be paying attention to the right numbers for sure. Are you using a software now? You're muted. You're muted, David.
Sorry,
Yeah.
there's noise behind me. I don't want it to interrupt. Sorry, software for
Are you
like
using an accounting
bookkeeping.
software? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We're
Okay.
using Sage 50,
Okay.
and
I've
then we have
connected with.
our own time tracking system and billing
Okay.
system, and yeah. And I mean,
Okay.
I'm a fairly hands-on kind of business owner. Like I'm the one who pays the bills, and I make the payroll remittances. I have a bookkeeper that calculates all that, but I'm actively involved in knowing what all the numbers are on an ongoing basis.
Okay. So I would suggest you definitely start looking at some key numbers. So are you looking at, for example, your P&L and L and your balance sheet? Are you looking at that now? Are you looking at your cash flow forecast? Are you doing that on a monthly basis?
Well, I mean, our expenses are fairly flat, month to month,
No,
because
no, 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 no. Are you looking at your P&L and your balance sheet? Are you looking
no.
at it in totality? So I would definitely suggest you start that because, for example, let's say in your head, oh, payroll will be, 50,000. If it's 55, 54, you're not too concerned. You got to look at the total picture of what's happening in your business. So you mentioned you have team members. Are they being productive? They might appear so, but when you compare your labor costs to your sales, red flags can come up from there. You can see, do I need six? Do I need five? Are they taking too long to do the job? Are they doing it effectively? So you got to look at your numbers in totality, the big
Mm,
picture. And then from there, you look at behind it. So I definitely encourage you to start looking at your profit and loss account, your balance sheet. You can get that from Sage. You look at certain trends as well. Trends are
mhm,
important. So you got to know when is my slow period? When is my low period? Why is this happening? Why did I make more sales? Another thing that I encourage you to start doing too is budgeting. Using a budget. Budgets save you money. Budgets will increase your cash flow. Why? It's not just to say, I can't spend this. No. You budget based on where you see your business going, and then the numbers, the actual numbers now, you do a variance analysis process that a lot of persons don't do. They just make a budget and it's there. But you got to dive deeper to figure out why am I below sales? Why am I under? Why am I under labor cost? So I would say get more in tune in a structured way with your business. And do bear in mind that if someone would approach you for selling your business, if you're audited, they want to look at those reports. That's where it starts. CRA is going to start with those reports. Your accountant is using logging in, figuring out your taxes and so forth. So no, you might be on Sage Desktop, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so you're sending the file to your accountant. But either
Yep.
way, you gotta be in touch with your numbers in a structured way. You right now you're operating, but do you know, could you be making more profit? You don't know what the industry is doing, what your competitors. You need to be doing those cross checks, comparisons. So that is where I do encourage you to start getting it all more structured within the first week after your bookkeeper updates everything. Take a look at what those numbers, what does that really mean? Because when you see it all together, it's like a movie. You might see this scene, but when you watch the complete movie, it's a different story, right? So think of it like that, using those key reports to really see the true story of what's happening in your business so you can plan your strategy well and in a better way. So I definitely encourage you to start understanding your numbers, looking at those key reports for sure.
Okay, thank you.
A question on a line of credit. I think that I've heard many times that you should get a business line of credit before you need it, not when you need it. But do you have any guidelines as to, how to proceed and what you should be seeking from your bank?
You mean what should you ask your bank for to get the line of credit?
Yeah, well, like, should you be asking for the maximum that they'll allow, or is it more nuanced than that? And how do you determine what is the right amount that you should be getting in a line of credit?
Okay. So for the line of credit, it doesn't impact your credit score or your debt ratio unless you use it, right? So it's a different type of loan. It's like it's there, but when you start using it, that's when it impacts you. Again, it will go back to the strategy you have for your business. There are some businesses that are just straight, they don't want any loan, no debt. There's some businesses that will have it in case of a rainy day. However, it doesn't hurt to ask the bank for what is the maximum and you can apply for it, or you might do less than the maximum. So there's room to ask for an increase if you do have to use it at some point. So bear in mind though that in applying for the line of credit and having it as a backup for your business, it it's there's a certain strategy with that. So you want to ensure that you're using it as needed and you're being clear onto why you're using it. Because now think about the interest rates when you use it too, right? So definitely speak to your bank personnel, find out am I if the maximum is for might be 100,000, for example. You don't have to ask for the full 100 unless you really, really need it. So you can use probably 50, 60, depending on why you need it. Another thing that you can explore also is if you know the red flags are coming up in your business, if you're at a crunch point, there are other strategies, if you are able to use them, that you can use them without the line of credit. So, for example, using a credit card, you can put something on your credit card if you have one, and you have 30 days to kind of work things through to pay it off versus the line of credit. And usually the interest rate would be different. So there are other strategies you can look at. If persons are owing you for a long time and you're just not getting any way, there's something called factoring where you can sell the debts to a third party, lesser commission, of course, and you get cash injection right away. So explore other ways of getting cash in your business before you would go to those interest bearing ones too. So I would definitely throw that in as well.
Right.
Lines of credit from banks invariably will also come with a personal guarantee,
Yeah, thank you,
which
David. Yeah.
which credit cards won't.
Yeah.
Even a loan from the BDC requires a personal guarantee.
Thank you for that, David. So that's another thing to consider too, right? For sure.
Okay, do we have questions from Midi or Svetlana?
I don't have any question. I just want to thank you so much for sharing this. I learned a lot. I think in my business, I'm in like that burn rate
Is that
area,
what?
but
Burn
Burn
rate?
rate.
Burn rate, yeah.
So do you
Where you're
mean
just
that,
injecting money into the business right now, right?
okay, so
Yeah.
what I would suggest for you is pause. Why are you injecting? Is it a case where you're not getting the sale? Is it a case where expenses are coming in faster? So it's an equation, right? So
Hmm.
depending on what's happening, and it could be, impacts on both sides of the equation. So assess what is happening, why it's happening. We must always go back to why. To solve the issue, we got to look at why it happened, what's happening now, and what can be done to fix it that's sustainable, right? So I definitely encourage you to pause, take a look at what's happening. Is it on the sales side, the type of services or products you're selling, the price point, the demand, how you're selling it? There's so many things on the sales. On the other equation, look at the expenses. Is there anything you can cut? Sometimes I encourage my clients periodically, look through your bank account, look through your credit card. Do I need this? Do I not need this? Right? Because sometimes it becomes such a routine. Oh, I just got to pay this. Then you're like, do I really need this service? Do I need this subscription? So take a look at your expenses. What can you be done to differ and modify that? And also with your burn rate, I would definitely suggest you look at the timeline. Has this been going on for a year? How many months? Because if it's just 1 or 2 months, we know sometimes not too bad an issue. But if it's going on for too long, then it might be time to make a decision. Do you need a partner, someone to come in to help? Do you need, probably exploring other funding to help you? So there's so many different impacts and levels, but I'm just giving you general insight here is what you could apply. Because if your burner is like an indicator, right? So it's like you might see it's getting cloudy, it might rain. You got to be prepared. So this is indicating that something is happening that needs attention. If you're going too fast, it's something within the whole scope operations of your business need attention. Might be more than one thing, and that's okay. It's just getting the issue fixed as quickly as possible.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I think mine is more in the area of advertising. So I'm doing a lot of advertising, being a new business. So spending more money in that area than I had anticipated.
How are you advertising?
Google ad, Facebook ad, then print materials like brochure
And what's your
and
business again?
posters, providing home care.
Okay. So
Yeah.
are you like a franchise or are you
No,
just
independent. Yeah.
starting?
Yes.
Okay. So my question is, which one of those are working for you? Do you know which one is working? Which one of the methods of advertising is working?
I think, well, not I think, I have had clients from all the different methods that I've used.
Okay, so my follow-up question to that is you got to track it. Yes, you've had
Okay.
clients, but you got to now dive a little deeper. How many clients did I get from Google? How many from Facebook or however other? And not just how
Yeah.
many, what has been the dollar amount? Was it profitable? For example, was this a client for $200? Was it a client for $1,000? Is it a client that's a one-off ongoing? So you got to look at all the different metrics. And another thing too, if I would say, and I know again, just a disclaimer, this is just general talking, everything, um, if you've been doing Google for a year, another thing too is it the search engine, the analytic, get into all of that with the person who's doing it for you. There's some persons who really don't understand how to do the Google search analytics and the search engine, and it costs a lot of money and a lot of times persons they'll come and say they do know how and they don't know how to do it. So I would
Hmm.
again review that. I would also explore what are some organic or low cost ways in which you can advertise your business, partner with other persons. So for example, you're offering home care. Are you connecting with certain family groups, certain, areas to partner with other organizations. It's like you're at a gym. The gym owners will partner with persons who do healthy cooking, juices, or do vitamins. So who can you partner with to have that symbiotic relationship where they're feeding to you, or, so I would explore definitely
Mm-hmm.
those no cost ways of advertising, of getting the name out there. And yeah, that is what I would suggest. And because marketing, I had a vice president once and he didn't believe in marketing. He was like, you can never track if it works. So he was never going to spend money on marketing. And I have another client, they grew about 300% and they never did any of that, just word of mouth, right in Edmonton. So it varies with your business. So don't believe that you always have to pay for advertising. There are lots of different ways in which you don't have to pay for advertising that can grow your business. And I know as a startup business, it's often sold to you, you got to advertise, you got to do Facebook ads, you got to do this. You really don't
Mm-hmm.
have to. There's so many different strategies that are around. So I would encourage you to explore those different strategies and see what might really change the momentum.
Right. Yeah. No, thank you so much.
Mhm.
It sounds like we could do a
But
whole
David, you could probably have some insights after 29 years in business. I'm sure you have some insights with marketing. Let's hear.
Um, yeah, in my experience, online ads are very ineffective because
Mm,
we're bombarded with them, and it's very easy to spend money. And there's a lot of people that are encouraging you to spend money because they make a commission off of the money you spend. And the advertising platforms, the Facebooks and the Googles, make it very easy to take your money and make it very make it seem like it's very sophisticated and effective. Think to yourself, when was the last time you made a purchase based on an ad that you saw on Google or on
mm-hmm.
Facebook, right? So think about, who your clients are or who your ideal clients are, and how are they currently finding their way to purchase the type of service that they're buying. Or if they're not already, what's stopping them from buying your service?
Mm-hmm.
So, think outside the box, like, you know, so senior citizens go to grocery stores, and grocery stores sometimes have a cork board where people can put up a piece of paper that says, "Hey, I offer this service." And, people that are 20 don't look at those things, but maybe people that are 70 look at those things. Or you think about um, you know where do you know where do the kinds of products or services get offered. So for example, think about pharmacies or doctors offices or physiotherapy clinics, okay, are going to be places where there are people who are in your target market. And I'm not suggesting you hang out in front of the physiotherapy clinic saying, "Hey, I couldn't help notice you got a bit of a limp there. Do you need help at home?" Like that's could be effective, but it's kind of creepy.
Yeah.
But just kind of start thinking along those lines are who are these people? What do they do? Where do they go? What are some of their, things in common? And what is your, ability to, so, for example, if there's like, think about like craft fairs, okay, or places where seniors go, right? Like, are you comfortable in going up to a person and saying, "Hey, just want you to know I offer this service. Here's a flyer, no hard sell, give me a phone call." Right? In which case, again, think about your target market. So putting a QR code on something is not necessarily going to be very effective. Or putting an email address. I think we've talked about how long your email address is,
Right.
right?
Yeah. I'm
And
working
yeah,
on that.
like
Yeah.
a senior's not going to have the patience to type in that email address,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you want to have like a phone number, like call me, right? So that would be my advice, is because you know what, you can spend an infinite amount of money with Facebook and Google, and they're going to tell you how wonderful you're doing. But if you're not seeing it, so the advice of keeping track of how many dollars you're spending on each of these things, and not only how many clients, but what is the value of those clients, right? So that you come up with some sort of cost per sale or cost per customer, right? So you get a sense of, what it costs me, $10 to get a new customer through Google, right? Or $15 to get a new customer through Facebook.
All right. Looks like our time.
Thank you, David.
Yeah,
Sure.
Sylvana, did you want to add anything? Did you have any questions or you wanted to add anything?
No, I made some notes for myself, and it's yeah, not at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. So your action steps, review everything, apply, be committed to improving, and just be committed. Remember, your business exists. It impacts someone else. So if you're not around, the world is never the same. It's that simple, right? And I want to leave this quote with you. It's an African proverb. I am because we are. Oftentimes we think we need to go alone. We can't go alone. So the importance of team, reaching out for help, supporting someone else, to just being kind, being a nice human. And that's just a little bit about me. And thank you so much. It was a pleasure connecting and meeting with you all.
That's great,
Thank you very
Kirsha.
much.
Thank-
Appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
Really great. And I was going to ask, how can we get in touch with you? But there it is, right there. Thank you very much. This has been very informative, helpful. I appreciate your being very well organized. But then I shouldn't be surprised. You're a professional coach, trainer, mentor, speaker, author. You've got it all. And we saw a very good performance here today on a matter of critical importance to small business. And thank you, David, for highlighting ways that we can cut some losses in advertising. We'll have to take that another session sometime.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you all very much. And I'll have this posted here in a week or so.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank you.
very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.